the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is a human rights and women's rights advocate and a CRI Foreign Affairs Committee expert commentary on Iran and alternative and democratic change, none other than Ms. Zolal Habibi.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be with you and thank you for having me.
Welcome, Mr. Lal on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Well, as you mentioned, I am a member of the Iranian resistance movement, and I have been a part of this movement for over 2 decades, dedicating my day-to-day life to the cause for freedom in Iran, something that the world is now talking about at a greater scale. Today is day uh, 19 of the nationwide uprisings in Iran, where the people of Iran have taken to the streets demanding regime change, demanding the overthrow of the current regime, and hopefully we will see the dawn of freedom in Iran as the people of Iran call for a secular democratic republic in Iran.
Secular Republic. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Lal. Thank you. And today let's talk about women leading the change, empowerment, and resistance in Iran. So tell us, beyond the headscarf, while compulsory hijab is a powerful symbol, how are Iranian women's leadership and resistance manifesting in less visible but equally critical spheres within families, in workplaces, in clandestine education networks, and redefining social norms?
Well, I think that first we have to understand how this regime works and also how the Iranian people, especially the women of Iran, have stood in defiance of this regime in the past 47 years. And the reality is that unfortunately, we are dealing with a misogynist regime which has um, been able to only rule by being able to suppress systematically half of the population, the women, and that way be able to enter people's most personal aspects of their lives, and that way be able to control the entirety of the society. But from day one, what is important is that the Iranian women have never given in to this regime. Back in months after the revolution, Khomeini brought the law in, with the compulsory hijab. While what was interesting is that the women protested extensively from day one. And what was really interesting is that women who actually chose to have a scarf, chose to have the hijab, were the ones who actually were protecting the protesters and were part of this because we believe that there should be no compulsion in in religion in general, but especially no one can dictate to a woman what to wear and what not to wear, and that should be a personal choice. Unfortunately, in Iran, in the last century, we've experienced both. We had uh, Reza Shah, who uh, he forced people to have their scarves removed, their hijab removed, and then we had Khomeini, who enforced people to have to wear one. So both are wrong. First of all, both of them have no legitimacy and no, um, you know, no rights in entering people's personal lives and dictating to them what to wear, what not to wear, how to act, how not to act. That is not something that has anything to do with the government, and it should never have that possibility to enter that aspect of people's lives.
Mm.
Unfortunately, both forced women into the house that way. And this is something that we've stood against from day one. So, what is interesting is that the images still exist, the videos exist that the main Iranian opposition movement, which is at that time it was the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, or MEK. They were on the front lines protecting the women who were protesting against the um, compulsory veil, even though they themselves, for the most part, practiced it and they had the hijab. So, what is important is that lesson there is it's a personal choice, and no one should have it dictated to them either way. Freedom is respecting people's personal choices. It's not dictating to people how they need to dress or how they need to act or how they need to present themselves. So um, the, the resistance of Iranian women in face of this misogynist regime started from the first days, and it has continued now for 47 years. And today, the world sees that women, for the most part, are in the forefront of the fight against the mullah's regime. Um, the world saw in 2022 how women came to the streets after the tragic death of Mahsa Jina Amini. But today they continued also. Today you see them standing in defiance in the forefront of this protest too, in this new wave of protest, and they still play a pivotal role. And I think that that has a history behind it, and that's actually what I'm here to speak about today. The book that I actually wanted to share is also in this regard, and it covers the the fight of Iranian women against the current dictatorship and the role that they play. What is interesting is that the Iranian resistance from very early on realized that women play a pivotal role in the fight against the current dictatorship because women have been suppressed systematically. They have a lot of potential to be able to, jump up and to be able to take responsibility. And that is something that we have seen in the Iranian resistance because they have that ambition and that inspiration to be able to live free. And so from 1985, practically, we see that in the Iranian resistance, women in empowerment has become a cornerstone and one of the fundaments of this movement. And right now, the president-elect of the Iranian resistance movement for the interim government after the overthrow of the regime is a woman. Her name is Maya Rajabi. And what is interesting is the parliament in exile, which has over 500 members, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, has 52% of them are women. So women have been at the realm of in the helm of this and of this movement, and they are the ones who have led this opposition at least for in the last 4 decades, and they play a key role, and that's why we say women are the force for change in Iran.
A key role indeed, and democracy, people. The generational torch, the woman life freedom movement, is notably led by Gen Z. How does the leadership style, strategy, and vision of his generations differ from the women who fought in the 1979 revolution or led the Green Movement in 2009?
Well, actually, to be honest, I think that it's the continuation, that it's not very different. In fact, this generation is uh, what sets Iran, I think, apart from others, maybe, is the fact that we do have a strong presence of women in the resistance, which has been continuous from the 1979 revolution till today. Um, and well, they have served as role models for the next generation. Like, for instance, my generation, when we came into the movement, well, we are from a generation that was born after the revolution in 1979. So we've never seen anything except this regime. But ahead of us, in front of us, we saw a whole generation of women who took on the highest responsibilities in the resistance and who have shown how capable they are as commanders, as politicians, as diplomats. In every realm, they have proven themselves to be capable leaders. And what is important is they're not, you know, single individuals. They have created a whole, this movement has created a whole generation of women who are leaders and who are leading the fight. And that is what the regime fears the most. And that's what we are also seeing on the streets in Iran. So the reality is that unfortunately we live in a society where there's male dominance and it's a patriarchy. So but the experience of the Iranian resistance has helped Iranian women actually believe in themselves, believe in the potential that they have, and to believe in the fact that they are truly the ones who can open the path and take destiny into their own hands, and to be able to, in fact, um, give that courage to the rest of Iran society too. And that is what we're seeing on the front lines today. We see the rebellious youth, we see the brave women of Iran taking center stage and continuing this fight. Um, just if you look at those who have just been killed in the past few days, the reality is unfortunately over 3,000 people have been killed during these protests right now. Um, but among them, you see a lot of young women. Like, for instance, yesterday I saw um, messages about a young girl. She was 18 years old. She was a student who was killed in these brutal attacks by the suppressive forces in Tehran. Her name was Zahra, or others who have lost their lives. So we see the presence of young girls, young women in every aspect of this fight. And the reality is that they feel like they have nothing to lose because living under the tyrannical regime that is currently ruling Iran is really not a life. They're alive, but they're not living. And so they want to put an end to it. And they know that no one's going to hand us freedom in the silver platter. So they're willing to pay that price. So maybe one day, that even if we don't see it ourselves, our generation or the future generation will be able to see a free Iran and to be able to live in a democracy, live somewhere there that they're respected as human beings and as equal beings in society, and that women and men are emancipated from this backward mindsets.
A backward mindset, indeed. So, Miss Solal, the movement has united women across ethnic, class, and religious lines in unprecedented ways. What are the practical, on the ground mechanism women are using to build and sustain this fragile but powerful coalition against this divisive regime?
um, that's a good question. I think that what we are seeing right now on the ground, and what we are seeing also in various aspects of Iran society, women are using every possibility, every opportunity as a way to resist against the regime. And in that, they stand united with one another because they know that alone we can't do anything, but together we have that power to be able to bring about change. So you see this very tight knit community. You see people coming together, uniting together with one goal and objective, and that is the overthrow of the tyrannical regime that's ruling Iran, this theocracy. But the people of Iran want to also move forward in this path. And I think that one of the things that has been a uniting force for many women in Iran is the role of Mrs. Maryam Rajavi as president-elect of the movement. She has set forth a 12-point plan for women's rights in Iran, which is far more than many countries currently have. You have to remember that at a time that the UN World Conference on Women met for the first time, which is like 30 years ago now, This year marks the 30th year. Um, at that time, when the slogan for the international community was women's rights are human rights, the Iranian resistance had already been practicing women's empowerment. And in fact, the entire leadership council of the Iranian resistance was all women since 1993 till now. So we have that experience, and I think that's something that we lean on. That's something that we draw inspiration from. We learn from, and that has always been something that has compelled us to move forward and um, be able to push back all barriers and obstacles along the path. Also, aside from the 12-point plan, Ms. Rajavi has presented a 10-point plan, which serves as like a roadmap for a free Iran. But point number 5 in this 10-point plan is, equal opportunities for women in all realms, specifically in um, in leadership positions, especially in the political realm too. Because until you don't have that, you're not able to really guarantee women's rights are respected. If women don't have equal representation everywhere, their rights are not going to be thought of. They're not going to be prioritized. And so this is something that's really important. And I think that's a unifying force. On the other hand, what we're seeing is the bravery of Iranian women. Unfortunately, over 40,000 women have been executed by this regime since its inception in 1979. But we also see the resilience and the resistance of female political prisoners right now in prisons throughout Iran. Um, this week marks the 103rd week of strikes every Tuesday by prisoners calling for calling for an end to execution sentences in Iran. This campaign has, for the most part, been led by female political prisoners. They who were able to even smuggle out their chants on Tuesday. So just imagine these prisoners are in the chains and in the hands of this regime, but they stand in defiance every Tuesday, chanting, protesting in the prisons, but calling for the abolition of the death penalty in Iran. And that um, resistance and that resilience and that bravery has its ripple effect and has spread throughout Iran's society. So really, that is something that we do see. And so I think a lot of us Iranian women, we actually draw inspiration from the bravery and resilience of the other women who have um, been the pioneers in this fight and who have led the path, and that it has made it a lot easier for us to also follow in their footsteps. People, as I said, like Mrs. Rajavi, but also we have so many other examples. For myself, I think, like for instance, I've been surrounded by these women since I could remember, and so seeing them and seeing how strong they are and how they're able to push aside any um, barriers. They have a saying, a motto is it's we can and we must. So there's nothing that they can't do, and there's nothing that can stop them. And that is, I think, the most inspiring aspect that we see in the Iranian resistance.
Interesting, interesting. Made Zolal and the Blueprint Bravery. Is there a recognizable playbook or set of tactics from the street protests to digital campaigns to artistic expression that has evolved, has been shared among women activists? How is this technology being preserved and passed on under severe repression?
Well, the reality is that right now, because it is the age of technology and there's communication methods, social media is one of the major tools. There are a lot of you know uh, revolutionary art or whatever you would like to call it, but forms of resistance that people are presenting, be it from you know um, a a performance, be it um, graffiti on a wall, be it just spreading out a message, and that is something that we're seeing. And specifically, I think in the past, if we look in the last decade, we see the emergence of a new phenomenon in Iran, and it's called the resistance units. People who come together, they start with small groups. Some of them have grown and have, you know, grown to be like 20, 30 people. Some are two, three people in one unit, but they come together underground, they work together, and their the main role that they have been able to implement in society is, first of all, keeping the hope alive, keeping the flame of resistance alive, and passing on that messaging through their activities to the Iranian population. I think that everyone is seeing a new face to the uprisings right now in the past 3 weeks, and it's something that has caught the attention of the world. But again, for us, um, we felt like this was um, the only way that it would have been followed, carried out, because we've seen how these protests have evolved step by step from each protest or each uprising in Iran in the past, especially a few years. Like if you look from 2017, 2019, 2022, and this year, you see how it's evolved step by step, these protests. And so this was the natural path of it to lead to this point. One of the messages that's coming from inside of Iran, and we are hearing a lot, is you don't see, despite the brutal crackdown, despite the fact that over 50,000 people have been arrested, despite the fact that over 3,000 people have been killed, despite the fact that today is day 7 of the internet shutdown in Iran and people don't have any form of communication, but the morale is very high. You don't see fear in people's eyes. You see ambition, you see inspiration, and people are really dedicated to bring about the change this time around. And that is, I think, the greatest force that the regime is afraid of. And you also see the role of these brave, rebellious youth and these brave women who are, as I said, the pioneers in this fight, and they are, in the front lines of the protest and the resistance to the mullah's regime.
So, Ms. Solal, revolution visioneering or visioneering, is this a movement where to succeed its broadest aims? What would be the first legal or social or cultural reforms led by women that would fundamentally reshape the country? Is there a shared vision for the day after?
Yes, there is a shared vision, and I think what is really important to highlight is the fact that we don't want to reform. This regime in its entirety has to go. It belongs to the dustbins of history. It is a belongs to the Middle Ages, and so that is like the first step forward. That to understand there is no reform whatsoever. No part of this regime can be reformed or can be used, and it's the Iranian people want to end to theocracy in Iran, and they want to end to any form of dictatorship in Iran. So they want to move forward. That roadmap is a secular democratic republic. So where there's separation of religion and state, where there's the ballot box is a final criterion, where all ethnicities, all minority groups are respected, and their rights are um, safeguarded. Um, and this is presented in the 10-point plan, which Mrs. Rajabi has set forth. This 10-point plan, I could just go over, highlight just the very quickly what each point mentions. It's very clear cut and it's very simple to understand. As I said, the first is, having a uh, people's sovereignty. So rejection of the absolute clerical rule and affirmation of the people's sovereignty in a republic um, founded on universal suffrage and pluralism, and where the ballot box is the final criterion. The second would be freedom of speech, freedom of political parties, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, and the internet. Exactly what the things that we're seeing denied today on the ground in Iran. But also, I think it's really important the uh, disbanding and dissolving all of these suppressive forces, be it the IRGC, be it the Basij, the VEVOC, all of them. They need to be the morality police. They all need to be disbanded. Um, the the third would be commitment to individual and social freedoms and rights in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and being able to disband all agencies in charge of censorship and inquisitions and putting that behind us. Um, Abolition of the death penalty and all forms of torture in Iran, which is, I think, key. Um, Last year, we witnessed over 2,200 executions being carried out in Iran, something that had been unprecedented since 1988 when Khomeini had 30,000 political prisoners executed in just a matter of 5, 6 weeks. There's separation of religion and state and freedom of all religions and faiths. Um, Complete gender equality in the realms of political, social, cultural, and economic rights, and equal participation of women in political leadership, um, an independent judiciary and legal system, autonomy uh, for and the removal of double injustices against Iranian nationalities and ethnicities, justice and equal opportunity in the realms of employment and entrepreneurship for all people of Iran, a free market economy, protection and rehabilitation of the environment, and also a non nuclear Iran. Those are the things that are highlighted in the 10-point plan. And I think that that in itself serves as a roadmap for the society. And fortunately, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, this parliament in exile, actually has a set plan for the 6 month interim government. And then there's the formation of the assembly to put together the constitution. And then there will be free elections. So that is all available. So people know what the difference today in 1979 is. Back then people knew what they didn't want, but they didn't know what their choices were. Today the people of Iran know clearly what they don't want. They want to end to all forms of dictatorship, be it the monarchy or the theocracy, but they also know what they want, which is that secular democratic republic and moving forward to in the 21st century. So and I think the other aspect is what's important is that it's not just on paper or in words. People have seen this movement in practice for nearly 5, 6 decades now, and they know that these people they truly stand for what they say. They're not after power. If they were, there were easier ways to uh, gain that. They have dedicated decades of their lives to bring freedom and democracy to Iran, and that is the um, only thing that they want, and that is what they've dedicated their lives for, and that's what they're fighting for every single day.
Okay, Mr. Lal, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and my book 101 review in sixth season as well, comedy 101 third season, and my food 101 in its sixth season as well, geography 101. Love Letters, Movie 101 Review, Music 101, fourth season, Science 101, Sex 101 in its fourth season, and My Baby Podcast, Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, My Bible Verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast To wrap up our discussion today, Mr. Lal, can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yes, I would like to recommend a book written by Maya Majavi. It's called Women Against Fundamentalism. This book is available on mayamajaviforchange.com website and also on Amazon, and it can be bought for anyone who's interested. It's also available in different languages, in English, French, German, so people can purchase it and read that.
Yeah, so I have one more question, Mr. Lal. If you could have the global public understand one essential misunderstood truth about women and leading this change in Iran, what would it be?
Um, I think that underestimating the power of women in Iran and thinking that, um, not understanding the whole uh, history behind it and the fact that women are at the helm of this movement and they are moving this fight against the misogynist regime, this theocracy ruling Iran ahead. And to have, I think the misconception is um, not is underestimating the potential that these women have and what they have shown in practice and how they have been able to, as I said, push aside all barriers, break glass ceilings, and being able to lead the movement for change in Iran, which is not limited to just freedom of clothing. It is far beyond that, and it is to emancipate both men and women to be able to live in a free society where everyone is respected.
Ms. Zalal, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome, people. See you soon.